Welcome to the show. This is the 2022 Dickson County Election Podcast. My name is Justin Spurlock. I'm your host. I have a weekly newspaper article that I write every week in the Dickson Post about local history, and I also have a radio show on WDKN that airs every Saturday morning. And the purpose of this particular podcast series is to give the voters of Dickson County a little more information about the upcoming election. And so we've had several candidates who are running in this election cycle for 2022. And today we've got another candidate here in the studio with us that we're very excited about. It's another county commission candidate for District 12. And so I've got Cindi here with me today. How are you doing, Cindi?
I'm fine, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Usually we start off the show by giving the candidate a chance to sort of talk about themselves a little bit and give the voters an idea of your background and how you grew up and kind of how you got to where you are today. So if you don't mind, will you just kind of take us back in time and tell us about your early life?
Sure. My dad was in the Air Force during Vietnam, and so I was born in 1969 at an Air Force base in Oscoda, Michigan. When he finished his term of service, he got a job working at GM in Flint, Michigan, so we moved to Flint. We were there probably till I was about the third grade, and then they decided that busing students from that school to other schools was the direction they were going to go, and we literally lived 3 blocks from the elementary school, and I walked every day since kindergarten to school. So this was not okay with my folks. They packed us up, and we moved to a small farming community about 45 minutes away, Millington, Michigan, which was right next to Frankenmuth, Michigan, which is a little bit more well-known, or as people from Millington call it, Chicken City. It was basically one light town, and it was the kind of community where if you were driving down the road and you see the farmer's stand, you'd pull over, get your produce, you leave your money in the jar, and you just kept right on going. It was a great experience. I graduated high school there. I met my husband, Jim. He was my high school sweetheart, so we got married in 1988. He was in the Navy at the time, so he still had time to serve, and we lived in upstate New York for a little while. Albany, New York, just north of there, Saratoga Springs. Beautiful part of the country. There's a Saratoga Springs Battlefield Park over there that we got to tour along the Hudson River, and that was amazing.
I bet that was, as a history teacher, I would love to see that.
It was really neat.
Battle of Saratoga.
Yes, where Burgoyne surrendered to Benedict Arnold at the time before he was a traitor.
Yes. Very cool.
We didn't have a lot of money, but we could put gas in the motorcycle and we could go and do that. So that was something that we enjoyed to do. When he finished his training there, we were stationed in Charleston. So we went to Charleston, South Carolina, and we lived there for about 3 years. We were there during '89 when Hurricane Hugo hit. I do not recommend being in the path of a hurricane if you can help it. That was a very interesting thing to be involved in. Of course, his crew was in port at the time, so they got to help with the cleanup of the town and go around and help people, and it was just devastating. A lot of the plantations there, it was like a bomb had gone off, and when we left 3 years later, there was still a lot of devastation. So, but it was a beautiful town, great experience. I'd never lived anywhere that had that many people. When he got out in '92, we were trying to figure out where we were going to live. We were going to go back to Michigan, where we were from, but unemployment rate was really high. So his brother had gone to Lipscomb here in Tennessee, and he didn't come back. He stayed. And he's like, why don't y'all come here, see what you think about it here. He said, I like it. It reminds me of home. The people are great. Just see if you like it. If you don't, a couple of years, unemployment will be better, and you can go back to Michigan if that's what you wanted to do. So in '92, we came out here, and we've been here ever since. We ended up buying a house here. We had our 2 children, Cole and Sheridan, were born and raised here. They went to Stuart Burns Elementary, Dickson Middle, and graduated from Dickson County High School. It was a great experience for them. They were involved in sports and groups and made lifelong friends, and I'm very happy that one of my children is still in Dickson County. Him and his wife live here, and I'm hoping my daughter Sheridan, her husband, can find something close. But yeah, Dickson County, it just had that hometown feel that we had grown up with. And even though 30 years ago Dickson County was a little bit different than it is now, you still have that small community feeling, and you still have neighbors that look out for you and you want to help you. And it's just, I wouldn't want to have been anywhere else.
My buddy Larry Prophet, he's a football coach over here at the middle school, and he always says, it's one thing to be born here and to, like myself, just to kind of always be here. But it's another thing for somebody like him who grew up out in East Tennessee to come over here. And he said, I love it here and I want to stay. And, it really says something for folks who decide to make Dickson their home. It's obvious if you were born here, you don't really know anything else and you just kind of stick around. Mm-hmm. But to really pick this to be your home is always interesting to me. So maybe just talk a little bit more about, why'd you decide to stay in Dickson County? I know you kind of alluded to the fact that it's kind of has a hometown feel, but especially 30 years ago, talk a little bit about, what it was like back then and what drew you here.
Well, we went to Walnut Street Church of Christ when we first moved here, and we actually were members there for about 20 years. And they had a great youth group, and I think they still do. And we got to meet a lot of people through them, and they were, when we first started, they're like, you've got to go eat at East Hills. You have to, but you got to get there quick. So when the doors open, when the service is over, you got to go right there because you're not going to get a table.
Yes.
So, East Hills, I do miss that. I miss the drive-in movie theater. The kids loved to go to the drive-in movie theater. When we had friends from out of state come, we would take them there, and they just were like, man, this takes me back. I really miss having something like this. And of course that's gone, which is kind of a bummer. But
I live over there and I drive past it every day, and I think I wish somebody would bring this back.
I know.
And I think there's been a few people who have tried, but for whatever reason it just didn't. I think during the pandemic some people had talked about it, and who knows,
I saw that on social media,
why things don't work out. But
right,
that would be cool. And that was one of my favorite things growing up as well. I always loved going out there to East Hills and the drive-in. Those are cool memories.
Yes. And then, of course, we have Montgomery Bell State Park, which is awesome. My husband would do mountain biking. They've got a great mountain biking trail over there. And I tried that once with him. He took me on the easy trail, and I learned that if you go over the wooden bridge and it's damp and has like that green mossy look to it, it's not a good idea to power pedal through that because you'll end up on the ground. But that was fun that day. I walked fine the next day. I wasn't really sure how that was going to go. But yeah, we love Montgomery Bell, the trails there. I would really like to see a walking path put in there. I know Memphis has a state park that they just did something like tires to trails, and they used old rubber from tires and had it made into trails, and they did, I think, like almost 2 miles worth of trails from that. So I would love to see something like that so that people with strollers or small children could have something to walk on. The road is not safe on the park, and the mountain biking trails is not good for little kids to be on, obviously, and the hiking trails, it's not a walking path. So it would be really nice if we could have something like that that would include younger families or even older people like myself who might just want to ride a bike.
Well, they certainly have the room out at Montgomery Bell to do different things. I mean, it's a huge, I think 4,000 acres or something like that.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think we take
beautiful.
For granted what we have.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that. So for those that are listening to that, read my weekly newspaper column. In about 2 weeks, be looking for a story about how Montgomery Bell got started. I've been researching that, and it's really interesting. It happened during the Great Depression, and I think we're really lucky that we ended up with it here. And my understanding is it could have gone several different places. They wanted somewhere right outside of Nashville. They looked at some different areas, to the north, to the south, to the east, but they came over here, and we ended up getting it. And so I think we're very fortunate to have Montgomery Bell State Park. I agree with that, absolutely. So thank you for telling us a little bit about your background. I really appreciate you kind of opening up to us and telling us about your memories of Dickson's past. And I identify with several of those memories as well. Growing up over there by the drive-in, that's always been one of my favorite memories is going there, and East Hills as well. For those that are listening that have been in Dickson a long time, they're going to know East Hills. That was, the premier place to eat every Sunday afternoon,
Yes.
and really at any time, and it was very, very special place. And so thank you for bringing some of those memories back for some of the listeners here. Let's talk a little bit more about the office that you're running for. So you are running for county commission. Talk a little bit about that. Tell the people again the district, and maybe it'd be wise to start off here first by telling them, because there's 12 different county commissioners, right, and they're spread out all through. They all have a different district throughout the county. Maybe a good idea to let the people know sort of what District 12 kind of covers.
Sure. Of course, it changed a little bit this year. They had a little rezoning since the growth has kind of switch things up a little bit. But basically, if you are on Highway 96 coming from the interstate, once you cross over the county line road, you are in District 12, and you follow 96 all the way to Camp Ravine. You go down Camp Ravine, that's District 12. If you follow 96 to Beechwood, that's pretty much where it ends. It splits Beechwood in half. So you go up through Beechwood and hit 47, go out to White Bluff, and take 47 out to White Bluff Road, and you make the circle loop back. Of course, it follows White Bluff Road on both sides. So it's just kind of, I don't know, it's not, I wish it was square so that it'd be easier to explain to people, but it's not. But yeah, that in a nutshell, that's District 12.
You did a good job of explaining it, because in my head, I know pretty much what you're talking about.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so that's good. Now, okay, so county commission. What is the county commission? For those that are listening that don't really know, and if you were lucky enough to be elected into this position, maybe give kind of an overview of not only what the county commission is, but maybe what some of your responsibilities would be.
County Commission is our local government's legislative branch. What County Commission does is they review budgets for other, if you want to say boards, other committees like the Board of Education. When they submit their budget, County Commission has to approve it. Same for the Sheriff's Department or the court system. The County Commission also has the power to control the property tax. They also can approve zoning changes to land. They can also approve building codes for the county. So there are a lot of other different authorities that the county commission does have that I think sometimes people aren't really aware. If you go to a county commission meeting, it seems pretty stamped. I mean, you go in, they vote, and you go out. You don't really get to hear a lot about some of the details, but yeah, they have a lot of power over the county, and it affects people here in the county directly.
Talk to me a little bit about why you decided to run. I think, people always have an interesting story about what motivated them to run. Some people, a specific event happens and they think, I got to be more involved. And other people, I think it's something that maybe they think about for a long time. Maybe it was something they thought about maybe when they were younger and they thought, now's not the right time. And then maybe later on, the time is right. But take us through that whole decision-making process of deciding to run, maybe why this office and maybe why now?
Well, 2 years ago, I ran for this seat. 2 years ago, the county commissioner for District 12 was Jeff Spencer, and he had moved out of the district, so it created a vacancy, and the seat came open. And as you know, 2 years ago, we were also faced with the new addition of the fuel depot to our corner of the district, or the county. So that was really a hot topic, and they were not county, but community meetings. They had meetings over at the Burns Fire Hall, and there was a lot of stuff on social media. There were a lot of gatherings for the county commission meetings and the planning and zoning meetings, and I got involved in all that and, wanted to know what was going on. There's a lot of, theories going on about what happened and could this be stopped or how did it even get started? And I thought that maybe if we can't stop it, can we learn anything from it? Is there anything that we could have done different? And one of the big things was well, for 17 years, my husband and I, we lived over off of Oakwood Subdivision, which is right down 2 Mile Road. So we're very familiar with that area over there. And it was always farm. You know, it had trees and fields. And if I remember right, it had been zone changed like 30 years ago. And, you know, 30 years is a long time for something to be changed from ag to industrial. And I just felt like there had to have been something that we could have done to remind people of what actually could go there. And someone mentioned to me the sunset clause. And I ran on that 2 years ago, and that's something else I'd like to see maybe at least be discussed. And what that does is if you change your property zone from, like they did, from ag to industrial, then whatever set of time, if it's 3 years or 5 years or whatever the county commission decides, you don't use that land for that purpose, then it would either A, revert back. If you did nothing, it would revert back to what it was before, or you just renew it. But that would let people around in that area understand that this land is zoned for this. And you could possibly living next door to something with industrial on it, or commercial, or whatever it was changed to. But, you know, for 30 years, you have people that move away, people that come in, people that don't know. It just always looks so pretty over there, you know, and who would have thought you'd have tanks over there one day? So that got me involved. That was kind of my aha moment. My eyes were open to that and wanted to get to know more about how our county commission works, who makes these decisions. Do the people have any say about it? How do you get involved? How do you make change? So that is what I ran on 2 years ago, and I still feel that way today. I think that we just need to be more aware. We need to do better for transparency's sake, and I think that's one way we can do it. I really haven't. Everybody I've talked to about that seems to love that idea, but I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't happened yet, to be honest.
Let's talk a little bit about your qualifications for office. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is, you know, we want to let the people know the different experiences that you've had in life, you know, education, career, you know, background, things like that, you know, you may have acquired some skills that would be, you know, important in this job, but also a little bit about your personality and your character and the things that kind of make you who you are, that might make you, you know, a really good fit for this particular job. But talk just a little bit about your qualifications.
Sure. I've worked in sales and marketing. I've worked in the insurance industry, and I've been a legal assistant for the past 11 years. I have met with, talked with, dealt with, helped many, many different kinds of people. I learned, and as you do when you talk to a lot of people and you deal in customer service or you deal with anything that deals with people and with the public, you learn to be a good listener. You learn to figure out how to use constructive conversation to figure out what is the real issue here. What are we talking about? What is the solution? Is the solution what you think it is? How do we get to that? I want to bring those qualifications with me to the county commission, and I want to use it to work with the other county commissioners. I want to see progress for our county. I want to help manage the growth that we're experiencing in our county. I know they're working on some plans right now, you know, trying to get a handle on all this growth that we have right now, and I think that's great. And I would love to be part of that to help, you know, direct the growth and keep up with our infrastructure. I don't even really want to talk about broadband because everybody's angry about broadband, but I would love to see the broadband keep up with infrastructure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that I would love to get on the county commission and use those skills to be able to make change for the better for our county. I want people to love our county like I love our county. Absolutely.
And I think we all want the high-speed broadband internet, but it's just, you know, how are we going to get it here is the real question, right? And so that's definitely going to be something that I don't think is going to go away until we get it in all corners of the county. But glad you kind of brought that up because that is something that people are definitely thinking about. So tell me this: what would you do differently than maybe the person who had this office before, or not necessarily the specific person that did it before, but maybe just kind of overall the way county commissioners do things? A lot of times people, when they decide to run, they think, well, I think I would do this differently. Maybe what would you change? What would you do differently if you were lucky enough to get this seat?
I would like to see some better transparency. And I know everybody hears that a lot, but there's truth to that. We have a government website for the Dickson County, and you can get on there and you can look up the county commissioners for each district. You can get the agenda for the upcoming meetings, usually before the meeting. I would like to see stuff on there also for planning and zoning. I would like to be able to see the agenda for planning and zoning the way you can for our Dickson County Dickson County commissioners. I have a hard time with trying to read those little bitty signs that are alongside the road when people are zoning changing, for the county. And I don't see why we can't have that on the website. I don't know why it couldn't be made easier for people to be aware of the changes going on around them. I would like to see just better transparency overall. One thing COVID did do that was great was bring on YouTube channel for our county commission. So if you can't be there in person to watch, you can actually get on YouTube when it's convenient for you, and you can see your county commissioners that work for you. But yeah, that's the main thing that I would like to see. I would also like to, I don't know, I don't feel like we're really keeping up with stuff that's happening now. I know there's things going on in the background with our different committees going on, looking at growth and looking at maybe how to keep our rural parts of our county rural. I would like to see maybe an update on some of that stuff. I think it was brought up in the last county commission by Danny Williams. I think the mayor asked him, where were we on that commission, and he gave a brief update. But I don't know. I think the people are ready to start seeing some progress, and maybe some better transparency would help with that.
What other political issues we've talked at this point? I've asked you quite a few questions, and I appreciate your answers. They've been very good and very thorough, and we've kind of touched on some of the different issues that you see and your opinion on those. But talk just a little bit more about your platform and anything else that we haven't talked about yet that you want the voters of Dickson to know about you, and why you're running and some of the different areas that you want to focus on.
One of the main things that I'm running on right now is the growth with rural integrity. I've got a lot of farmers, a lot of people that own property that are just concerned that we're losing our agricultural integrity of our county. And I think the high school even has a good ag program, don't they? Didn't they put
absolutely.
in a barn? Yeah, I mean, it's
great ag program. FFA is real strong over there. The kids that work in 4-H do different things with ag. I mean, it's strong, and it's also strong out at Creekwood as well. We do that pretty good in this county, I think. So
yeah, it's very important to the integrity of our county about who we are. And I think most people, when they came out here, when they do still come out here, they like not being in a congested area. They like being away from the city. They don't want to see a bunch of congested, population areas. That is a big concern about all this new development that's going on and these people coming in, and it's not just local builders that are coming in. We're getting people from outside of our state even that are coming in and build. I've had somebody tell me that in my district, she had a developer knock on her door. They own like over 150 acres, and he wanted to buy their property so that he could make it into a subdivision. And she was just basically, no thank you. But those people are out there, and they're looking desperately for property so that they can build and do these developments. And I know we have growth. I know we need places for people to live. But we also need to be careful about how we go about that growth. We need to try to manage it as best we can. We don't want to regret in the long run what we've allowed to happen now. So I am all for the rural preservation plan. I'm not sure if you were there during the planning and zoning meeting back in November or December. I can't remember exactly when that was, when the planning and zoning came up with this plan, and they were trying to increase the minimum lot size, and this is for agricultural zone land, not a residential zone, from 1 acre to 2.5 acres, so that if you want to build a house on ag land, then the minimum amount would be 2.5. It did not pass. they did finally agree at 1.5 acres. And of course, there were some setbacks about, how far from the road, how far from the neighbor next to you, and that kind of thing. It was brought to the county commission, and they tabled it so that we could have an ad hoc committee to kind of review it and see if we could come up with something that people could get behind. It used to be back in before 1988, before we had an actual planning and zoning commission, you had to have 5 acres if you wanted to build a house on ag land. And so planning and zoning's thought was, can we go back to at least a half of what it used to be to try to preserve our agricultural areas, to keep it from looking more populated, so that we could keep some of our natural resource look and, keep it rural. So I'm fortunate enough to be on that ad hoc committee. I'm one of the homeowners that get to sit in and try to have some input on it. There are 3 county commissioners that sit on it. There are 3 planning and zoning commissioners that sit on it. And they've been working really hard to try to come to an agreement on what would be acceptable for everybody. And I have heard some pushback about that, about making it another requirement. But at the same time, I think, we really need to be concerned about how fast the land is being gobbled up and how we want to use it in the future. Agriculture, as we said, is very big in Dickson County, and we need to try to preserve as much of that as we can. I'm not saying that we have to stop growth, because that's not going to happen. Don't want to do that. Our county's going to grow. We love it. Why wouldn't anybody else love it? But let's have some planning and thought into what we're going to do for the future.
That's really good information there. I appreciate you kind of explaining that in detail, because, that's one of the big issues, I think, from my experience of talking with the people that I've talked to who are voting, is, they see the rapid construction that's taking place in downtown Nashville, and then they start to see that happening out here. And everybody wants to enjoy Dickson and wants to move to different houses and things like that, but you don't want it to get too crowded. And so it's kind of this balance of, we want it to stay more of a rural community, but at the same time, you can't really stop the growth. So it's just an interesting, I guess, discussion and an interesting issue that's not going to go away anytime soon. Mm-mm. So
no, and too, you worry about, like, I think I read the other day, Spring Hill was having a water shortage. Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is with drought levels, how much of it is demand, because Murray County back in 2019, 2020 was the fastest growing county in Tennessee. Number 2 was Williamson County. So they are going through some growing pains too, and it would just be nice to kind of hope that we don't have that issue as well, that we can kind of keep up with it and kind of control it and manage it and, take care of our citizens.
At some point, I think you start to kind of overgrow your infrastructure, and I spent a little time living out in Murfreesboro. I don't like to admit that too much. I don't, but I did move out there to take a job, I guess you could say, and worked out there for a little while. And for a while, I drove back and forth from Dickson to Murfreesboro, and that's a tough drive. And
that's
in the
painful.
Afternoon, you try to go down the Old Fort Parkway, and it can take 30 minutes to go a mile or two, and I think that's the last thing that we want around here is we don't want to outgrow our infrastructure. So I think that's another thing too, is maybe trying to control the growth, but then also looking at, okay, if it's coming, how do we manage it, and how do we kind of get out in front of it? I think Clarksville is trying to do a little bit of that right now, and maybe some other communities. But you're right, it's tough, and it's not going away anytime soon.
Right,
so.
And we need to think about safety too. Like you said, the roads, we need to keep up the infrastructure. We've got a lot more people connecting to these roads now, and it's getting really busy. 96 is not the same as it used to be. 46, forget about it. 30 years ago, it was a 2-lane road going up into the then city limits, which was up by, I think it was Faulkner, GMC, Buick, something like that. But yeah, no.
I joke all the time and say you can't take a left on 46 on Friday afternoon, but I think it's about any day now.
Yes.
You can't hardly take a left there.
You have to plan how you want to go through 96.
You're right.
Or 46.
46 is tough. Is there anything else? We've talked about a lot of different things at this point, and I know we've hit on several different areas, and I appreciate you going kind of in detail and explaining your position on those. Anything else that comes to mind that you'd like the voters to know about you that we haven't discussed yet?
I would just like to say to your listeners that I have had a lot of people approach me about things that are happening inside municipalities, like inside White Bluff city limits, inside Burns city limits. I just want to remind everybody that the municipalities have their own council, they have their own town councils, their own planning and zoning, and I would really encourage those people to be involved and to pay attention and get to the meetings if you can. Let them know that you don't agree with some of this stuff. I wish there was something I could do to help if I was elected as a county commissioner, but unfortunately the municipalities are their own entity and they decide what they're going to do with it.
I'm glad you brought that up because people, I think, have a hard time, understanding that and maybe wrapping their mind around that. But you're absolutely right. These municipalities kind of have their own town councils, city councils, and Charlotte is actually some of their, I think all of their council seats are up. They're voting for a mayor this year. I think Burns last year, or maybe 2 years ago, had their elections on that. The city of Dickson will be next year. I was just reading about that. So that's something also to be kind of keeping an eye out for.
Yes.
While some of them may be up for election this year, not all of them are. And so just kind of keep an eye on that. If city of Dickson is something you're concerned about, keep an eye on that, because I think next year, I could be mistaken, but I thought I read something where in 2023, that's when those seats come up. And then I think White Bluff was decided not too long ago. I remember a newspaper article about a coin flip.
Toss, yes.
Yeah, so that wasn't too long ago. So they'll be coming back around again. But I'm glad you brought that up because, the county and the city, it's definitely different. And you did a good job of explaining that.
Well, one other thing I would mention, too, is I know a lot of people talk about integrity of the person who's sitting in the seat. And when I was at the planning and zoning meeting, when they were discussing the rural preservation plan, people were allowed to get up and speak. And of course, most, if not all, the people that got up and spoke against it were either in the realty company or they were contractors or developers. It was the everyday homeowner or the farmer that got up that was for it and would like some kind of change, and they were actually hoping to get more for a minimum amount for the rural minimum acre. And there were people that sit on the planning and zoning that are in the realty industry, and many people that were there were upset that they were getting to have a vote on this because they felt like it was a conflict of interest. And here you have people that are sitting on the board listening to people that I'm sure they've done business with and want to continue to do business with. And even if they were making their best judgment call and could separate what they do for a living with the vote that was at hand, it's the appearance that there is a conflict of interest. I think that's important because we lose a lot of faith with our people, with our Dickson County taxpayers, and they feel like that maybe, it's more of, I'll help you, you help me type thing, and that the average person doesn't really get a say. I can tell you that I'm not a realtor. My husband's not a realtor. We don't build homes. We don't develop property. I would have no conflict of interest doing any votes whatsoever when it comes to any of the land plans, zoning changes, code changes, anything like that. I just want to be sure I made that clear.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up. We talked a little earlier in the program about the older days of Dickson and kind of when you first got here, and things have really changed. And we kind of talked about that at the beginning, but really in the past 20 years, the downtown area where we're at kind of now, we're at the Redbird Studios for anybody who is wondering where we are. We're right across the street from the Dickson Middle School, so we're pretty close to the heart of downtown right over here, and things have really changed in downtown over.
Oh, it's great.
They had the revitalization program where they got grants from the state of Tennessee. That sort of got it started. It sort of beautified the area. They put in some new things, made it real pretty, kind of redid the way that you park on Main Street and some things like that, and that sort of got got it started. And then I think back in 2002, House Blend opened. And then after that, you started seeing businesses every few years started to open up. Of course, there have always been those mainstays like Hodges and, Fuzzles and some of those others that have kind of always been there, right? But we've seen all these new ones coming in, and kind of along with, the downtown area sort of being revitalized, we've seen a lot of different festivals and a lot of different events taking place downtown. You've got, things like Old Timers Day, which has been around for a long time, and the different Christmas events we do down there. But they've been adding in some new stuff, and one of the new ones is the Dickson Street Festival, which is coming up. Mm-hmm. And then after the Dickson Street Festival, I think we've got some other stuff. Now I'm going to forget something, but I did hear yesterday that there was going to be a barbecue bash in Burns at the end of July. I think it's like July 30th, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. And that's pretty close to your constituents out there. So let's talk just a little bit about maybe how people can maybe find you. Are you plan on going to any of these events that are coming up or anything like that? I
will be around at the Dickson Festival. I'm not going to have a booth, but I will be wearing my hat and my shirt, and I'm going to be enjoying it just like everybody else there. So if you see me and you want to ask me a question, please, by all means, approach me and ask me. I think, going to be at the used bookstore or used book sale. I think it's going on Saturday. I'm a bookworm at heart. I don't get nearly enough time to read, but I love going to a good used bookstore or book sale, and I think they're having one over at the Baptist Church, I think, on Saturday.
Okay, cool.
So I'll be there. But yeah, if Burns is having a barbecue, definitely I'll be there. It should be a nice balmy day.
Oh, it was... Okay, so last year's was amazing. I had the chance to go out there. It was really hot. It was, but it was worth it. I mean, they had a barbecue competition. You had basically all the different, barbecue restaurants in town had showed up, but not just the restaurants. They had some guys that make barbecue, maybe not professionally, maybe not for a living, but they're really good at it, and they've kind of perfected their craft. And so they came down, and some of my buddies actually won one of the categories. Nice. And it's fun. I mean, going and just trying the different barbecue and seeing people. And they had a place where the kids could go and maybe get a little armband and play around on some bouncy houses and stuff like that. So, that stuff is always fun. And with it being in Burns.
Oh, yes.
And you represent, part of Burns, which is a whole nother conversation about Burns and how there's all these different seats that kind of represent parts of Burns, but
it is weird.
I grew up over there and live over there, and it's different the way that all works out. But so there's several commissioners and candidates who sort of represent Burns. Maybe they'll all kind of go out
probably
and do that. So that's great. Thank you for telling us, kind of where we can catch you and maybe say hi to you. And but maybe there's some people who have some questions. We've been talking about 40 minutes now, and we've covered a lot of different things, right? But there may be a question out there that I didn't ask that somebody thinks of. And can you maybe give us some contact information so that people could reach out to you, find out more about you, maybe ask a specific question, things like that?
Sure. You can send me an email. It's electcindygray@gmail.com, or I have a website, electcindygray.com, and you have the option. I think my phone number is on there. Just give me a call, send me an email, and I'll be happy to talk to you. I would love to talk to you. It's so hard to hear from everybody about different areas where people have different concerns. I mean, I have people that talk to me about zoning codes. They wish that there was more code enforcement because there's nuisances that they have that no, it's not supposed to be there. But I think we have, one zoning guy that's supposed to cover this whole Dickson, so yes, I would be interested very much so to hear what other people have to say, what they experience going on in their corner of the district, and I would love to have that conversation.
Well, this is my favorite part of the show. I always joke about that, but I like elevator pitches because sometimes I have my students do certain things like this where, you take a big idea, but you have to kind of get it to this concise thing. And I'm not going to hold you to 30 or 60 seconds, but the idea here is that if you were to run into somebody, at the street festival in downtown Dickson, or maybe at the barbecue bash out in Burns, and you only have a few seconds to talk to them because it's really hot outside and you're both trying to, eat your barbecue sandwich or whatever, what could you say to that person in a relatively short amount of time that, might convince them to vote for you if they were to walk up and say, hey, Cindi, why should I vote for you in this election?
I'd say I'm Cindi Gray. I'm running for District 12 County Commissioner. I believe in managed growth with rural integrity, better code enforcement, clarity and transparency on the issues, and being a good steward of the hardworking taxpayers' money of this county. I would appreciate your vote to be your next County Commissioner of District 12.
Fantastic. If you were my student, I would give you an A for that summation right there. That was good. It was really, really good. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming in. I do appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you, and I appreciate all of the candidates coming in and being willing just to sit down. And I've actually, kind of overwhelmed at first with all of the interviews and stuff. But these last few days, people have really been reaching out and thanking me, and I just want to say thank you back to everybody for listening. I mean, this is just something I thought would be kind of fun. I had a little bit of time on my hands kind of hanging out here at the office, and I thought, people want to come by and chat. I've got the equipment because of the radio show, and it's just been a lot of fun, and I just want to thank everybody for, coming on, all of the candidates that have come on, but especially thank you to all the listeners, because you guys are giving feedback to the candidates and telling them that you enjoy the show, and which is, cause them to call, and I think this is number 12. And I've got number 13 and 14 that I'm lining up. So it's been, just a lot of fun.
This is great.
And
really
I appreciate you. And hopefully you'll come back at some point and we can maybe do this again and maybe become a regular thing, because I'm really enjoying putting the information out there for people. And there's obviously, a thirst for it. People, like hearing from different candidates, and people like knowing what's going on in their local communities, and don't you think?
I highly agree. And I think I mentioned this before we started, that if I do get the seat, I would love to be on your show either monthly, quarterly, whatever, just to update people in my district or anybody that wants to know what's going on with the county commission.
Awesome. And we'll hold you to that, because I think that's a really cool thing. And my whole thing is getting the information to people, and what better than the source from the government who kind of knows what's going on to come in and talk to us about, everything that's happening in the county. So I appreciate you offering to do that, and definitely going to hold you to that if it happens. And again, thank you for coming on the show. As we close out here, would you mind maybe just giving the voters one last time your name, the exact office that you're running for, and then if you have the dates in front of you, maybe the dates, and then kind of remind them of who's eligible.
Sure. I'm Cindi Gray. I'm running for District 12 County Commission seat. I think the last day for voter registration is July 5th. And early voting period is July 15th to the 30th. And if you want to wait until August 4th, then come out and vote with everybody, and we'll see you at the polls on August 4th.
Thank you so much. This has been really great. And if anybody's listening that would like to be on the show that is running for office, of course, it's available to everybody. I've been getting some questions about this, and when I decided to do it, I said I'll do one, but then I'll have to offer it to everybody. So that's what we did. I kind of put it out there, and I've offered anybody who wants to be on the show to come on, and I've tried to reach out to anybody that I could find. Unfortunately, there's been some people that I haven't been able to track down. So if you're listening and there's somebody that you would like to have on the show, reach out to them and say, hey, give Justin a call, send him a message, or maybe an email. He'd love to have you on the show, and we'd love to hear from you. So my email address is coachspurlock@gmail.com. So shoot me an email, or if you are listening to this on Facebook, just go to the messenger and send me a message, and we can make that happen. And again, I want to thank all of the listeners of Dickson County for tuning in. Appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm sure I'll be back with another episode soon. Thanks for everybody for listening, and thank you, Cindi.
Thank you.
I hope everybody has a great rest of